Hey guys, MrPokke here, and I'm not sure if y'all can see it, but I am currently right in front of Mount Fuji. Anyways, don't worry about it because today we are going to be talking about Honkai Star Rail's latest version 4.0, brand new character Aha Instant Yao Guang. So for character description kit, I'm General Yao Guang, Seer Strategist aboard the Shenzhou Yue. Like everyone else, you may simply call me Madam Yao. So it's gonna be D Yao up in there. It's true I could have divined the finer details of this encounter, but where's the fun in that? Being here in person has turned out some rather pleasant surprises. Her mysterious, bold, and radical actions were so revolutionary that they left everyone stunned. She saw all fortune, good and ill, through the eye of the hunt, yet knowing that fate is not to be defied, the seer strategist still faced a danger alone. To be dealt with such a cursed fortune. Why does she remind me of YSG? How can one ever hope to alter their fate? Aha! A special shout out to Yao Guang for winning #1 Shenzhou's Chosen Seer and #1 that Generals got a wild streak. So that is pretty much going to be our Yao Guang Street Marketing version 4.0, and yes, she is going to be our first of the series of the brand new Elation unit. For physical Elation, her tones does represent quite a lot of, I'm not sure why, I see a lot of resemblance towards like facial, with a little bit of like YSG elements, so very CN, and it appears that the Aha itself is pretty much going to be part of the sort of like a contest in general, where he's in charge of going ahead into picking out the contestants for those that actually come into our brand new Planet Arcadia, and all those are basically participants, so Yao Guang herself is going to be included, and that probably also means that Shenzhou is one of those few within this planet, so going into future other Elation characters, we might see a very similar streak of like Aha giving them as a judge. So today is gonna be Thursday, 1st of Jan, so tomorrow when the next Street Marketing comes out, I think it is gonna be a very similar instance when the next 5-star is gonna be on how they're gonna be performing and how Aha is gonna be judging them based on that category as well. So anyways, as I'm like basically walking through and going back to the bus and everything, I kind of just wanna discuss about like what this actually gonna mean. So this is gonna be our 4.0's first ever drip marketing ever since it has been announced for 1st of Jan. So tomorrow is gonna be the next one. I am a little bit interested to see how they're gonna be cooking on the new world, because at this point I have no idea what Planet Arcadia actually is like, aside from that very first teaser, the brand new 4 different screenshots, which also is partly because, you know, the delays, right, that they're gonna be changing the direction of how 4.0 is gonna be, and like how everything in maybe in the MSQ is also gonna be taking an impact. So there are more hype for me personally at this point towards how version 4 is going to be like than the actual unit. That's just for me. But for her actual kit for Yao Guang, I see that usually from the past couple of versions, in version 2 as well as version 3, it tends to be a new DPS alongside with an alternative DPS. So that is going to be for 3.0 D Herda and Neglea. But for version 2, we saw D Sparkle, or not Sparkle, we saw Sparkle along with Black Swan. And both of them are not really main DPSs. They are basically kind of like supplementary units to a vertical investment you want to obtain. So for example, Sparkle is going to be for your skill point hyper carry back then, and then Black Swan was a upgrade towards your DOT units as well, right? So maybe Yao Guang, it's either going to be the fact that the brand new Elation DPS, so she's our first ever physical Elation. Hey guys, so a little bit of a time lapse. I wanted to record a whole thing for the trip marketing when I was in Mount Fuji, but the connection was like really bad, and my bus was getting late and we had to go to other places. So fast forward, it's currently 9:47 p.m. right now. I'm just gonna be able to continue this. Tomorrow I am gonna be expecting another trip marketing for HSR's 2nd unit in version 4.0, so look forward to that. Okay, so taking a look into like her design over here real quick, she does remind me quite a lot of like the motifs from back in the Shenzhou, which obviously because she's one of the essentially the general, right? As long as kind of just reminds me, Jingyuan, Fei Xiao, now Yao Guang over here, which is going to be another playable unit, has been revealed to have this very similar kind of vibe from the Shenzhou Luofu. From what I'm guessing, where her description is saying, she's not really like a frontline combat kind of unit, because she's like a seer. If you guys read or watch this series called Romance of the Three Kingdoms, she kind of reminds me of Zhuge Liang, where like she is like the kind of like the strategist kind of person that doesn't really go into combat directly, which personally, just from the design as well as the lore when they released for the trade marketing, it kind of screams to me that she might not actually be a main DPS, but that's just from like what I'm observing from the actual kit itself over here. And one thing to note is that because she's going to be our first ever Elation unit, right? She's going to be a physical Elation. She also does appear to use this it looks like those like talisman kind of thing, which he would then summon to imprint like all kinds of like spells and curses and all that stuff, which once again just reinforces my personal opinion that she probably would be going along the lines of like helping our team instead of being the one on the field right here. Pause. I'm gonna crack open this one over here. Ooh, hell yeah. Bro, unrelated, but imagine we just do all of like our early access reviews or like trade marketing in real life. Crazy, right? So kit wise as well as the design, I personally have never played Honkai Impact 3 before, so I think some of you Honkai Impact 3 players definitely would have seen her from back in the older series. This is basically my first time seeing her. She reminds me a little bit about Fei Xiao, but not exactly because she's not really like a muscle mommy. Overall, very interesting design, which is more like the chill, thinking, thoughts, no brain rot, and going forward into the battlefield kind of person. Wearing high heels as well as the dress that exposes quite a bit of the I think it's a pretty interesting choice design. So we'll take a look into how exactly our kit is going to be functioning. I'm guessing less than probably 2 to 3 weeks away. We might have we actually should wait so long because it's 8 weeks long. Okay, we probably would take a little bit before we actually gonna see what she's actually gonna be doing, right? So now onto the elephant in the room, which is what I think this brand new Elation path might actually bring to Honkai Star Rail. So as per, they have already announced that we are going to be getting a brand new path from back in version 3.7 or something along those lines. Now it has been confirmed that version 4.0 is going to be pretty much based on this Elation path, right? From my understanding of Elation, the few times I've played in SU and DU is basically something like follow-up tech, and you basically make all of your units deal follow-up attack damage, and then the Elation buff just applies all those different random buffs or random effects into your attack, which then makes the whole combo work by itself, right? So I don't really exactly know if Elation is going to end up being a single target hyper carry follow-up team comp, because if you think about it, Fei Xiao, if you want to play Fei Xiao in D or SU, she pretty much will just run your Elation, right? And then make every single one of her team run the follow-up attack, and maybe a couple of hunt here and there. So if they do want to follow up the lines with like the Xianzhou and then make it a single target follow-up attack damage, and the Elation is basically like a way to further boost your follow-up attack team comps, for example Fei Xiao, that would be an interesting way to go about it. So for example, what I could see happening is if Yao Guang is going to be like, let's just say she's a 4.0 sub DPS or support, right? So very similar to what Sparkle did for the SP DPS back in version 2.0, or what Black Swan did for the DOT team comp back in version 2.0, she could be a sub DPS / support for Fei Xiao specifically, just because it's Xianzhou or maybe Jingyuan. I personally would lean a little bit more towards Fei Xiao, just because maybe Fei Xiao needs a little bit more love. But then I wouldn't really completely push out the idea that Jingyuan might also be getting this, right? Which reminds me, I do hope that eventually for this version 4.0, we are going to be getting another patch of like Nova Flare, which is like the rework for the older units with like Blade, Kafka, Sylve, and Jingliu. So if they're going to be doing this similar patch for like Jingyuan or all those other old units, and then they add on Yao Guang into his slot as his team as a better support or sub DPS, I think I can definitely see that route happening, especially if we're going to be taking a look at the first unit for 4.0 being for the Xianzhou faction, right? So I think from what I'm guessing, it is most likely going to be a follow-up attack support, or specifically dedicated to essentially Fei Xiao or Jingyuan, since to a certain extent Jingyuan is technically also considered follow-up. So that's pretty much it. I would say that the choice of a physical element is quite interesting, because we don't really have any other physical element people from Xianzhou, unless when it comes Shu Shang, which I guess also works because Shu Shang is also from Honkai Impact 3 and she's physical. So I don't know, a Shu Shang EXP in version 4 would be kind of crazy. But that being said, I do think that if she is gonna be in the physical element, I could see a potential, just because physical does tend to have the highest base multipliers bleed. Super break Yao Guang, because we just got ourselves Dahlia. So if we're gonna be cooking up Super Dahlia with Yao Guang as a sub DPS, maybe a little bit of like a Ling Jia situation, I wouldn't put it past that as well. So there's like another alternative role. But I would say that the main guess for myself personally, she is most likely gonna be a support / sub DPS for Fei Xiao Jingyuan, right? I would also
argue if she's gonna be a main DPS. First of all, I don't think she is, just because from her design, like I mentioned, she reminds me of Zhuge Liang. She's like a strategist. I don't think she's gonna be the one doing most of the heavy work. But if she does turn out to be a main DPS, then this will pretty much be our first Elation path, and that will purely depend on what Elation themselves are actually going to be. So from what we know from lore, the biggest two side specs, they're pretty much just going to be Sunboy and Sparkle, right? So if we're going to be seeing like more of these kind of characters coming back up in the future, it will depend on how MiHoYo wants to structure Elation as a whole. Hopefully, they can carve out their own unique identity, similar to, I guess, in a certain extent, Remembrance. They kind of just combine a little bit from everyone. Like your Remembrance Hyacinth is like your Abundance, your Remembrance Casual is like your, the Glow Passive, all kinds of stuff. So if they can make an Elation path as a standalone, I hope that at least they can add a little bit more flair to make it more interesting for their kit. But that being said, I think it's a little bit unfortunate, because you guys have seen the situation from like the delay for version 3.8 to 4.0. I hope that the main story as well as the lore for these kind of things are not going to be impacted by that much, because I'm guessing they kind of have to just rework a lot of things, especially for the main story quest. I'm not too sure if they will change the units kit too much, because if you think about it, the units kits are they're basically just gacha units. So maybe more so impacted would be likely the MSQ for version 4.0, which we're going to be seeing a little bit more. I don't even know when are we going to see HSR 4.0, because it's been like such a long as year for 3.0 anyways, right? So that is pretty much going to be the Elation path. And another topic I want to kind of discuss, the light cones. So as you guys would know by now, the light cone thingy was one of a particularly annoying point when it came to the introduction of all of the Remembrance units, because when Remembrance came to picture, we didn't really have a lot of substitutes for them if they ever want to use a alternative light cone that's not going to be the signature light cone. So the glaring example for this is that back when Cassius was first launched, you pretty much had no other option for her S1 aside from literally like a Bailu S1, just because for the higher amount of base HP. So if they are going to be introducing a brand new Elation path, then I think a very similar situation will happen again. I would say this concern is definitely valid, but it might not be as crazy as it seems, because let's just be for real, we haven't really seen that good of a 4-star light cone on the get-go, similar to the extent, let's just say for example Duns and Sons, right? The universal like 4-star light cone Duns and Sons for pretty much every single harmony. For Abundance, I guess Abundance haven't really seen a lot of play, because Hyacinth is the thing, so it's basically Hyacinth and DHPD. But Quick Broco and like this kind of like shared feelings, they're all pretty decent. I would think that when they first launched the new path for Elation, the light cone options are probably not going to be available on launch unless they introduce the 4-star alternatives in the gacha as soon as possible, which is what they did for, I believe, Cyrene, right? The little baby Cyrene, which is the alternative to Hyacinth's S1. Then going forward in the future, when the version develops more and more, for those that skip the S1, they are eventually probably going to be adding a 4-star alternative somewhere along the lines that I'm guessing between 2 to 3 versions from the original launch, right? Because they've done this kind of pretty much for almost every single DPS. So it was the same thing for Aggron's S1. She didn't really have a good alternative aside from Good Night and Sleep Well, and then they introduced Boundless Choreo, and then you can kind of just put that, and that is a much closer substitute compared to the actual S1 itself. Then for Castrus, you have the same thing. For Hyacinth, you have the same thing. I think that is kind of pretty much. I think even from my day, you could also use the free event like code, which, but then again, that's a destruction, right? So I'm not too worried about players not really having enough central icon options if they're going to be going for the Elation path, because if you think about it, when a brand new path is first launched, you don't really have access to the full kit from the get-go anyways, right? You just have that one Elation path unit, whether it's a main DPS, sub DPS, or whatever it's gonna be. You need more of these like +2, +3 costs going forward into like the middle portion of the anniversary or somewhere after the anniversary to fully assemble the Avengers or like this version's flagship. So by the time that rolls around, if you were to get the vertical investment supports for the Elation path, let's just say you want to build an Elation flagship, even if you're going to be running E0 S0, I don't think it's going to be that big of a deal when it comes to endgame content, especially for these kind of like newer environments catered towards the flagship itself. So after maybe a couple of runs, then you still want to get an S1. For example, you put for E0 S0 Hyacinth back then, you didn't have enough for the S1. I'm probably going to be releasing a couple more of the reruns in the future. Then players who do want to lock into the Elation flagship, I think there's opportunities to basically pick up the light on yourself. And then one last topic, not necessarily related to Yao Guang, but basically with the release of Elation, and we have, at this point, we're probably going to be confirming that Elation is going to be this version flagship. I do wonder how the MC is going to be like, right? Because we have two extremely strong contenders for essentially some of the best free units that I have ever seen in HSR, or rather in most gacha games, for HMC on launch as well as RMC on launch, and even till this day, RMC is just like basically used in almost every single clear for almost every single crit DPS team. HMC, if you still want to use her or him in Surik, is definitely still doable. I've seen a lot of teams, I've shown you guys in my Dahlia guide, right? Whether you run HMC or run Runway with Dahlia and Field as a sustainless, it is 100% doable. So I would say that the barrier to entry, like this expectation has been set to be extremely high for a free MC unit to be given out in the next coming version, right? So for whatever reasons that the Elation MC, EMC, hopefully the EMC would not fail the expectations for those that came before, because it's for those that come after, right? So hopefully the Elation MC, I'm guessing if they have to make a kit about it, they can't really make it a main DPS, because if they were to make it as a main DPS, it will be one of the easiest things to get replaced the moment another main DPS comes in, especially within the version itself, which is why for both HMC as well as RMC, they are more so the lines of supports, right? So if that is going to be the case and EMC is going to end up being a support for like the Elation flagship, it means that they pretty much have to run a couple of mechanics that we haven't really seen being utilized by most of our current supports that we have right now. I think, for example, they have to have something better than RMC's 100% action vertical runs, as well as up to 50% true damage multiplier, right? So only at that situation can you say, okay, you know what, these are the times where I can actually use EMC over RMC. And I honestly don't really know how are they gonna make a better one to control that, because RMC's kit is just so overloaded and so busted, and that I just still cannot believe that it's actually a free unit. So looking forward to how they're going to be cooking up Elation path with EMC, and in this case, I'm guessing it's going to be Yao Guang being our first ever. Like I mentioned at the start of the video, I personally don't think she's probably going to be a main DPS. She feels more of the vibes towards a sub DPS. But then again, you know, if she's going to be a mage, like a mage main DPS, we've got like Zhuge Liang, you want to be like, I think that's going to be completely viable as well. So let me know what you guys think in the comments below. I am going to be very up here. It's kind of getting a little bit late, and tomorrow I'm going to be flying back to Singapore. We will be doing one more drip marketing right before I leave, so that will be my last drip marketing in Japan because my flight's at like 5 p.m. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. What of the day is going to be? Welch. Join Discord. Okay, you know what? New year, new intro, bada boom, bada bing, bada bang. Alright, actually, you know what? No big wrong. Bye.
Hey guys, MrPokke from the future here. So I wanted to post the drip marketing reaction for Yao Guang yesterday, but unfortunately the internet kind of just gave up. So we're going to be combining both Yao Guang as well as this time recording Sparxie. What is it going to be? So without further ado, editor, cue the intro. Alright, don't mind me because I'm just going to be using my, I use my phone to be the one in the camera so that I don't have to record as much. I can just kind of read from the reaction over here. So for Sparkle or Sparxie or Huohua or Huahua's Outer or whatever it's gonna be. Hey there, Galactic Baseball. Welcome to the stream. I'm your good friend Sparxie. Are you ready for a day overflowing with dopamine? The world is full of sparkle, so don't forget to shine brightly just like Sparxie. Which I guess Huohua really just means the sparks that comes out from the fireworks, and then Huahua just means the fireworks itself. Based on the CM transition anyways, right? So thumbs up, follow, stream, views, party to the world, and Sparxie and Sparkle, the mask and the fool are fundamentally the same. Whoever is seen, whoever is liked is the correct answer. Aha, special shout out for winning #1 Plan Arcadia highlight view machine. So basically both a clipper, and the #1 most likely everywhere at once. Whoa, okay, so that is gonna be our initial little bit of a drip marketing there with regards to the text. So I do believe that for Sparxie, in case you guys haven't realized, this is our first 5-star harmony that we have seen ever since Few. And okay, I'm not really gonna count Dahlia and Few because like, they're meant for Surik, but this is potentially our first fire 5-star that is directly not going to be linked to Surik, because I think for the entire past like 1 year it has only been Firefly, Surik, and all that kind of stuff. So it would be quite interesting to see how the fire elation part is going to be proceeding from the addition of Sparxie in this current format. So taking a look into her character design, from what I can tell, is that she basically is going to be wearing a very similar outfit from like the original version, but it's like whiter instead. Almost a little bit similar to what they did for YSG in Xenosaur Zero. So now she basically dyed her hair white. Her dress is gonna be way more of a white tone. Her shoes is gonna be covered, so it is what it is. And as well as she's holding that little phone, and that phone, if you zoom in, if I can zoom in, it shows the logo of
basically like her face, as well as a little bit of symbolism towards Aha in Elation. Because if you guys see the entire picture of what the Elation path looks like, the cup in front, it is only gonna be the facade where you see at the start. But behind the cup is actually almost like a smiling face, which is very, very similar to, if you guys remember the actual Aeon of Elation, the Aha. You might think it might be the masks that's like floating around the place, but actually behind the masks of Aha, there's also a silhouette of someone lurking in the shadows. So I thought this was a pretty interesting concept where they are gonna be most likely introducing version 4 to be the big bet in this. It might be the Elation, as compared to, right, for example, in version 3, the remembrance was more of like the heroes, like the saga of heroes, and you guys were gonna be saving the day, remember everything. But this one, it almost gives me like a villain vibe. That like the Elation path is most likely gonna be taking on the role of like either villain, anti-hero, or whatever it's gonna be in that regard. So just like what I discussed with Yao Guang's Kit yesterday, which is, I'm guessing from the text descriptions and like her role as a seer and everything, I personally think that she's gonna be more suitable towards the role of like either sub DPS or a support or that kind of stuff, and doesn't appear to be a main DPS. For Sparkxie, I guess from like what I'm seeing in the description of her text as well as the character design, she might be the one that would either be a main DPS in that regard, because I don't really think it makes sense if we are having two different Elation path units and neither of them are gonna be a main DPS. Unless they want to use the Elation path to purely act as like a support subclass, and you're going to be using it to buff all of your different like destruction, hunt, as well as erudition units. So if that is going to be the case, then the entire path of Elation is just purely going to be support. I just don't really see that happening. So there should most likely be someone being a main DPS in the Elation category. And based on what I said from like yesterday, I don't think Yao Guang has the, personally, I don't think she's going to be a main DPS. I think Sparxie does have what it takes, because she kind of has the vibe of like most likely everywhere at once on the very last line from Aha. So I think her significance within the version 4 story is going to be a lot more compared to Yao Guang. On top of that, I guess you could kind of also say Sparkxie's role is going to be a lot more prominent, especially throughout the snippets between Panacony, as well as a little bit of a throwback in version 3.8. And it would make sense for me if in version 4.0, she is going to be the one that will actually take up the main stage, and there will be the shield environment, build a team around Sparkxie. Alright, okay, I just keep calling her Sparkxie because I'm so used to it. Sparxie, Huo Huan, all the kind of stuff. So I think she's most likely going to be the focus of this first of version 4.0. I am not too sure if Yao Guang is going to be the one that is going to be a support, because technically they're both the part of Elation. So if Sparkxie has a very similar mechanic to like, let's just say D her up, where if you have another member of Elation, you get some additional buffs. I could definitely see this happening, because for D her up, everything has been around for a very long time, but for Elation, this is going to be the one first, right? So for that regard, that's going to be that. Also, the usage of her being a fire Elation is very interesting, because if you want to think about it, we are currently on the environment in Map of Chaos, as well as the endgame content, where we have both, for example, the Sunday boss, as well as the upcoming MOC Calamity boss set, right? So for those units, we are going to be getting the inherent fire weakness, especially because this patch 3.8 with Dahlia, they just so able to shield for Surik as well as Firefly. So going into 4.0, having a fire main DPS that is not super quick would sort of make more sense regarding the endgame content that we have been receiving. So one side, it might be a little bit more suitable for Super Break, and if you don't want to use Super Break, you could use the alternative, which is going to be, in this case, the Fire Elation, the new raid environment, and we're going to combine those things. So Sparxie is probably going to be the one performing better, because if you want to talk about Yao Guang, her being a physical Elation, I find it a little bit more difficult to combine that. But to be fair, you do have Dahlia working quite well with Blue Hill, so this might just like complete theorizing. I think one of the most important aspect of what I'm going to be looking forward to in version 4.0 is with the release of 2 Elation units back to back, which is going to be Yao Guang and Sparkxie. It means that we also have access to 2 different Elation path light code options, and that's one of, I would say, like the players as well as like the main concerns of whether or not if we're going to be introducing a new class, how are we going to be getting access to these kind of premium light codes, and if not, do we have any alternatives, right? So now that we do have 2 different Elations back to back, I hope that at least they can introduce some kind of 4-star Elations, so that at least if you didn't pull for the E0 S0s, so if you're just going to pull one copy of Yao Guang and one copy of Sparkxie, and let's just say they are both in tandem, they work hand in hand because they're Elation, right? Then players probably wouldn't have enough funds to get both E0 S1s for cost immediately right at the start of version 4.0. So I really hope that because of these 2 parts together, and Best case scenario, they don't really care for one another. So for example, Yao Guang is just going to be support for like the older like Shenzhou and like Fei Xiao for follow up team calls like Jingyuan. But worst case scenario is that if Sparkle or the Sparxie also wants to use Yao Guang, then before the anniversary unit, then I think players will definitely feel that much higher pressure of fear of missing out compared to, for example, Anglia and Viherda, because this is going to be a brand new path. As well as the brand new path with the vertical investments, right? So that's assuming that they both work together in tandem. So for those two calls at E0, L0, if there's gonna be alternatives to a 4-star like one, I think that would be really a lot better. On top of that, I'm also gonna be looking forward to how the Elation MC is gonna come in. So assuming that the team comp is gonna be composed around Sparxie, Yao Guang, as well as EMC, then one last slot is pretty much gonna be the sustain, unless they make EMC a sustain. Because DHPD and Hyacinth are still really relevant. I am not too sure if Aventurine, Fuxuan, Luocha, and all other sustains can actually keep up with the brand new synergy. But to be fair, if they are going to be using, for example, like energy regeneration, maybe Huo might be able to work well there. Because let's just say, for example, Sparkle, right? And she's going to be taking the form of the XP. And if the OG Sparkle works with the brand new Sparkle and it's gonna be like a skill point environment, then maybe Huai might work because she does consume a lot of skill points, which kind of brings me to my last point, which is gonna be Sparkle itself. Will Sparxie use Sparkle in tandem with one another? From what I'm guessing, it's most likely not going to be the case because for all of our brand new SPs and ultimate versions, they kind of just went about their own way. So for example, DHPD as there's E2 Deal. To a certain extent, you can use them because E2 Duo hasn't been getting a buff for like a very long time. Fugue as well as the original team has basically nothing to do with one another and one's a 4-star. So there might be a possibility that the Sparxie doesn't really have anything to do with Sparkle itself, but it would be really cool to see if Sparxie actually can work with Sparkle. So you're gonna be able to make a team, assuming that Yao Guang is gonna be still in there as a Elation, Yao Guang Sparxie plus Sparkle plus the sustain. So that would mean that EMC can actually replace the role of Yao Guang, assuming that Yao Guang is going to be a sub DPS, and you can kind of see if you really want to pull for Sparxie in this first phase before going to version 4.1. For right now, I think it's a little bit more in the dark as to what exactly can we expect from Elation, because unlike in version 3, where we really have the snippets of like what to expect from Euphorius, what to expect from like the summons, mimis, where they tease the live stream, unfortunately due to all the other reasons that we didn't see in the preview, I don't really know what to exactly expect from what this path is going to be offering. So hopefully we can get more news as to what this is going to be. Most likely when I'm going to be coming back in the next week or like the week after we get a live stream, then I think it'll be a lot more easier to see if you guys want to dedicate your savings as well as your strategies into a version 4.0 patch. Personally, I am a little bit skeptical always when it comes to the first versions of every single patch, which is going to be the 0.0s, right? Because all the 0.0s, they are roughly 2 to 3 patches away from the anniversary, and that would definitely damage essentially your flagship funds. For the past 2 versions, we've seen this every single time, unless this time they want to change something new, and Sparxie is going to be like the flagship, because technically this entire Elation thing, it has been heavily tied to Sparkle itself, as well as to a certain extent Sambo, so maybe we see Sambo now, who knows, right? So that is pretty much going to be my early preliminary thoughts for both Yao Guang as well as Sparxie at this time recording. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. I'm about to catch my flight in roughly 3 hours from now, and then I'll be seeing you guys on stream tomorrow. So word of the day is going to be... Ah, shit, I want to do it. Wait, hold up. Okay, I'll do that. Alright, see you guys. Bye.